Hello, my name is Martin Brossman. I am the founder of the Men's Inquiry. I want to welcome you to a live recording made on April 27th, 2006 in my home, which is our usual meeting place. In producing the book, Finding Our Fire, over 100 men answered questions that have come from the past 10 years of the Men's Inquiry, a monthly discussion group where men discuss their lives in a confidential environment. I felt that a live recording of one of the actual Men's Inquiry meetings would expand the experience of the book as well as be of value in itself. So I asked men, as a special gift to my birthday, to come to this event. The recording is designed for several uses. One is an insight into the world of men that is seldom seen in our everyday lives. It is also a resource for men creating or currently leading men's discussion groups. This special edition has been edited from a 2-hour meeting to allow it to fit on a single CD. This was recorded and edited with basic home equipment, so please keep that in mind. My vision for this is to enhance relationships, increase understanding of our similarities, and bring greater awareness to our unique gifts. You may advance to track 4 to skip over the introduction and ground rules and hear the question and then the men speaking. Be well and enjoy the Men's Inquiry.
Gentlemen, I really appreciate this. So I'm going to welcome you all to the Men's Inquiry. It's been going on now 11 years. For those of you who don't know, this all started out of me taking a men's workshop in Los Angeles. And when I came back, I realized I wanted this to continue. I was looking for a group where men would just get together and have a regular conversation about life, talking about issues that were in their lives, and discuss it like this. And I was complaining about it not being around. And a guy said to me, sometimes in life, the lantern you want to be lit is yours to light. Why don't you just do it? And then it started, and I wanted this particular version to be an open group. And the vision for this Men's Inquiry is to be what I envision would exist in a normal, healthy society where men would get together and have meaningful conversations. So that's what the vision of this is. Also, I found so much value in my own life of connecting and developing male friends that enhanced my success in business and my personal life that I've been drawn to keep doing this stuff. There are a few basic ground rules. One is confidentiality. I ask whatever is said here stays here. The other one is I ask that you speak from your own experience. Are you saying we as men? Or are you saying I? But I want you to have an experience here of speaking from your own experience as though your experience has value. So I could say, as men, we get frustrated with all the stress we have in life. That is not what I'm talking about. If I said it in an I statement, I'd say, I get frustrated with all the responsibility and stress I have in my life. And I also invite you to notice in your own life, how many times do you have to say we to gain validation instead of just standing there and saying, who I am counts and this is my experience of something. Please, one man talking at a time. If you are cross-talking or commenting to another guy, I'll stop the meeting and look at you. Don't give advice unless it's asked. The reason is, often when we get advice when it's not asked, we go into a mode of defending instead of exploring deeper. So if a man wants advice, he'll ask for it, and then that's fine. Now I want to move on to our questions. I'll read all the questions for this evening. Then we notice where it goes, and then wherever it leads us at close to the ending of the time, which will be a little bit after 9, we will stop and give the men a chance to describe what they got out of the evening and if there are any commitments they want to make in their life out of that. So the questions came out of a meeting with a businessman who says, you know what's missing in our culture is people don't take responsibility for anything anymore. And I thought, well, what does taking responsibility for mean? Then the second question that came out of it is, what does it mean to be a man of your word? The next one was, what is there to do when you break your word? and what is there to do when someone else breaks their word. We'll start with, what is taking responsibility for mean personally to you?
I guess, had an example of that today. Our accountant at work asked me to come in and talk about some stuff, and one of my people had taken way too long in writing a final payment letter, and so he was giving me a hard time about it. And I just said, he's my person, it was my responsibility to make sure he did that, and I'll take care of it. It really just took the wind out of his sails, because he gets wound up on this stuff. So then things after that went much better, because he wasn't on his, sort of chopped the legs out of his, from underneath his high horse, and that he was on. That was just a little example today where I took responsibility for my person in my team, rather than get defensive. I mean, it was a trivial matter. It didn't make a hill of beans difference in the real world, but he was all excited about it. And I see myself in that some too. I used to get excited about little things like that. But anyway, so.
Let me take a different angle on this one, because this question hits home for me and my personal experience, as opposed to in taking responsibility. I chose to take responsibility for certain projects at work. And that meant to me that I would be the go-to guy for them, which I was, for about 18 months, working my tail off to get these projects done. And being responsible for them means that I would take the credit for doing well. And of course, if I mess something up, so there's a problem later on, they got to come back and yell at me. And so many times, I'll get yelled at for not having done stuff fast enough or whatever. Finally get these darn things done, in great shape, out on time, and I don't get any reward for it. It's just, they didn't even put in the newsletter for the department, Jim did a great job here. He worked his butt off, come in early every morning, worked late every night, 60 hours a week. Give him a pat on the back. Nothing. It burns me up. When you take responsibility for something, you should be getting the reward. Well, I should be getting the reward if I've taken responsibility for it. And if I've messed up and things have gone badly, well, I'll take responsibility for that too. The downside as well as the plus side.
That brings to another piece, is connected to responsibility is, what are the agreements, which connects to the integrity.
I mean, if you're in a situation, regardless of whether it's parenting or work, or you can always opt out. You can always step back and say somebody else will do this. I can always have that option to opt out. But if you are responsible, if you hold yourself responsible, then you don't opt out.
And along that vein, I'm almost seeing it, and maybe I'm taking a different twist on the question, but in the context of it being a men's group, I see it in terms of responsibility, accountability, along with someone's word. I see it as, in quote unquote becoming a man, you must be responsible. In order to be a man, you must be responsible. You must take personal accountability for your actions, for your word. And when you give your word, you then are saying, I'm responsible to stand up to it. And in other words, we were all kids at one time, and we didn't just pass into manhood by virtue of the number. We got there by virtue of accepting and taking ownership in that responsibility for whatever it was, be it just be it understanding that our word is important and we need to protect that. To me, in a sense, our word is all that we all have, that we have the capability to control 100%. And that's what makes, let's say, a man who may be 6'4" is no bigger than a man who may be 3'4" if both men honor their responsibility and their word to the best of their ability. And so that just for me personally is what I see in terms of the responsibility, accountability along those lines.
So to you, honoring your word, the question of taking responsibility, kind of creates an equal playing field.
Absolutely.
In your experience.
Absolutely. And that's not to say that personally that I haven't dropped the ball, repeatedly, or not, not done well at it all the time. But it's just to say that striving for that and holding that as one of the highest goals is the direction that, that I try to go in when I have conscious control over it. That to me was what I was taught in terms of quote unquote being a man.
I want to flip this.
Yeah.
Because I think that we're all looking at responsibility as this very strict, structured kind of thing. And I think responsibility is the ability to respond. And so when you ask, what am I responsible for? What am I able to respond to? What have I done with my experience up to now by keeping to my word, by doing all these things that we're talking about? What have I done with my life to this point so that I'm able to respond when I meet a new challenge and get a new responsibility? And so I look at responsibility, taking responsibility, as an opportunity for growth. I've been trying to put a program together for about 3 years, and I continue to talk to different people about where can we put this program into, how can you help me, or how can I help you in such a way that this program could be integrated into what you're doing to help you along and to help me along. Well, today, as I was sitting with somebody talking about this particular situation, the person said, "Oh, well, here's where your program should go." And what she was saying was, because you have been responsible up to this point and done these things, now I'm going to give you the reward that you didn't get. Okay, the reward for doing that, and the reward actually came from the outside in the first place. But the second thing that I felt was the internal reward. I felt the reward for having worked on that thing, because I really identify with what you're saying, and that's part of what you were talking about was what triggered this for me. Because once we've been responsible, a lot of times we want other people to pat us on the back. But rather than doing that, what I found was, I don't expect that anymore. I need me to pat me on the back and say, you were able to respond in the situation. And the next time a situation like this comes up, you will be able to respond again. Now, I know that kind of seems kind of a high road kind of thing to it, because I feel the same thing when I don't get the recognition. But I've learned that there is a piece of it. There's peace, and I try to make it grow each time. That even whether I get outside recognition for what I've done or not, I definitely push myself to recognize myself from the inside. And it sounds like you took a great step in this project that you completed.
Well, yes. There's actually 2 projects that I completed, working on them simultaneously, when normally we only work on one, and I see everyone else around me, having time for coffee breaks, and they can read the newspaper during the day, and they do their 7 or 8 hours, and they're gone. And I'm in early before they arrive for an hour or 2 hours, and I'm there for several hours after they're gone in the evening, and I take a short lunch hour and all. I felt like my department made a contract or so with me that they would give recognition, there would be bonuses, there would be merit raises. Yeah, we didn't get any of that. Thanks to heat. It says, what does it mean to you to be a man of your word? I was a man of my word. I did the work. I went above and beyond to do what needed to be done. I took responsibility for it. I paid the price when they had extra things that had to come in. And we had a tremendous rush from all the stuff coming in on top of me to get it done. I got it done. And then it was not even as much as a, thank you, Jim, we done good.
Well, I feel like that, for me, being responsible, like you said earlier, is trying to do the appropriate thing for a given situation. And an example of that was that I got a job with Travelers Insurance Company, and I worked overtime, half of the night and everything, and I got a little measly raise at review time. I got a new boss, and he liked to go over to the bar and drink beer. And so we go over at lunchtime, 11:30, and we drank beer sometimes until 4:25. We got off at 4:30, so we gave ourselves 5 minutes to get to our cars at the garage to go home. End of the review time, I got a promotion and a big raise.
It just ain't the right boss.
That's it.
The right department.
Need to learn to drink beer.
So what I'm trying to say is, in many situations, there aren't hard, fast rules.
Uh-huh.
What I'm trying to say is you have to determine what the situation is and what's the appropriate action for it. Sometimes not keeping your word may be the best thing in the world for a situation.
Okay, well, I thought that my boss and I had a contract and things set up to do a little differently than it turned out to do.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel
Sure.
the irritation and the feeling like I'm betrayed here by the way things came down. Had I known in advance that I was going to get this sort of treatment, I wouldn't have been working 60 hours a week. Forget that. They would have gotten what they got, and would have been a lot easier on me, and wouldn't have been as good for the product, but as good for the company. I was maintaining the high standards that our company is known for. So,
What do you do when someone else broke their word? Because really, right?
yes,
He gave his word
yes.
to you, and he broke his word.
Well, I brought it up, but there's nothing we can do.
I say.
Fine, thanks. Okay, well, I'll know next time.
Uh-huh.
Make adjustment as what I want to take responsibility for, how hard and how much effort I want to put out. I can do that, but I can't go back and undo what I did before. And of course, I don't want to undo it because I'm proud of my work, but I hate it when they take my work from my art and just make it a thing. And there's, goes from a thou to an it and nothing flat. That's
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of bring this back maybe on track to, being a men's group
Uh-huh.
and men's issues, and what's it all about? It's like if you're a family man, taking care of family, being responsible for the family, and in my case, the wife decided she didn't want to be in a marriage, also decided she didn't want to have any part in raising the kids, and she left. I took responsibility. I stepped up to the plate. They're my children. I'm taking care of them. And, it's amazing to go out to a shopping mall or something with two young kids and women looking at you thinking that, well, you're just doing this for an hour or two. You can get back to the house and let the wife take over. And, there's just all kinds of issues around this subject. I could talk and take the rest of the night, but I won't. But my wife, the way I explain it is the parent gene just didn't kick in or something. She had no desire to take the children anywhere to do anything with them. So I was a primary parent long before she left. And, that's just, it's forced upon me if you think of it in that sense. Because, it took her 10 years to convince me to have kids. And I said, well, okay, we can have kids if you're going to take responsibility for them, because I just don't feel like I know how to deal with having kids. And it turns out we had kids, and, there was a change that took place as soon as I saw that child coming into the world. I could literally feel my brain being rewired, and this is my child, and, I'm taking responsibility for this child right here and now. So it was a physical change that I felt in me on becoming a parent. And, I'm still taking care of them. This is 17 years old and 12 years old now, my children. And my ex is wishing that she could be there and experience a lot of things that I've been experiencing. And all, but, it's a decision she made, and that's where the situation lies. So, that could be a whole subject matter right there that could be explored, and I don't really know what else to add. But
Sure.
I just wanted to get that out there.
Great.
Well, to me, being responsible is doing what I say I'm going to do. So if I call you, Martin, and Monday and said I'm going to be here tonight, I'll be here unless I'm sick or get killed or something. So that's important to me, that you just back to the word. I'll do what within reason, and or I might and Hilton called and he's sick and he called. That to me is responsible. But I know I remember some of our meetings through the years, guys will say, well, I didn't come and I didn't call, I was taking care of myself. See, I sense that's irresponsible. I don't see responsibility there, though. But yet, there's a balance, I guess, of this kind of thing. But this thing you were talking about, getting recognized, getting credit, getting award, that touches really a nerve with me because.
Well, if they get the downside, I ought to get the upside.
Right.
If others are waiting on me and others have
you know.
expectations of what I'm doing, and if they're depending on me getting stuff done, and I get it done, I take responsibility. And I feel like there ought to be some recognition of that. But if I did not take responsibility and not get it done, well, then they would have a legitimate right to yell at me.
The evil that men do that's after them, not that you, or the downside.
Yeah.
The good is often carried with their bones.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's, so,
What I was, this past weekend was spring gathering. I started that thing 11 years ago from scratch. And now I'm involved a little bit, but I was involved this time and I had to take over a lot of stuff because the person that was totally responsible, the head guy, it wasn't happening. So I kept taking more on and taking more. And originally we started our planning of this back in January. I said, I'm going to do this. And I was going to try to not get involved with it, but I saw it wasn't getting done. Stuff wasn't getting done. And I kind of decided, kind of like you, I'm going to pat myself on the back and be okay with it. I won't get the recognition, but I did pretty much 70% of the work. And I didn't get but 10% of the recognition. And I'm having trouble with it. I can't pat myself on the back too much.
I guess I just haven't gotten the recognition for so long.
But you got used to it.
You gave up.
But you're talking about men's issues.
Yeah.
I think that's a men's issue, getting recognized.
Yeah.
Men want to be recognized. I really think that's a common, a core thing that we want to be recognized, and maybe women too.
Yeah, and there's also an important piece is two other pieces that I had to learn is one, setting things up so I get it recognized. Like let someone know enough of what happened. Like with me, I didn't know this. If you had told me, I'd pat you on the back for it. But I noticed, how did I talk so much and not know he was doing all this in the background?
Yeah.
So that's a piece of that. Right.
I didn't take responsibility for setting up the fact that I would get recognized.
Yeah. And
I knew that kind of ahead of time, but I thought, well, I'm going to be okay with it because I've gotten recognized a lot in the past. But I didn't, I wanted it,
Well, it's a fair enough issue there, and I believe I did take responsibility for wanting to get the responsibility and setting up that I would get responsibility. And I let my boss know I was working extra and staying late, coming in early, and also we having all these problems and having all this extra stuff come in, stuff we hadn't thought about, and it is coming. And I need help, and can I have more people? No, it just did not happen. They said, sorry, can't hire anybody else, can't get anybody else. Everybody's just flat working as hard as they can. Tough. And
do you think we as men don't give each other enough credit, enough pats on the back?
Well, let me talk from my own experience. Before and after doing the men's work. Before men's work, I didn't know I looked right through men, and I didn't acknowledge men, and I rejected acknowledgement when it came to me. Slowly over time, I start noticing I look for ways to acknowledge men more. Mm-hmm. And I also make damn sure they get it. You see what I mean? I don't, when they do that humble bullshit, excuse me, it was nothing, it's my job. I don't buy that anymore. No. I go, John, you just discounted my acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So I'll call them on it now. Because I used to do that. Push it away and then be lonely because no one acknowledged me. So that's something I do watch out for. And I do, I don't know about men. I can say I am victim of that piece. And I also want to say maybe you should see if he has a bar. And screw the next project, start hanging with the guy.
In the past, for some other projects, we have had a little recognition, celebration or whatever, go out for lunch and the boss buys, and maybe there's a pint of Guinness or two involved with this. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
This time, no, there wasn't that, but I would certainly be willing to take the recognition if there was a thank you thrown in my direction. Why aren't they trying to catch that rascal? Hang on to it.
Well, I think you brought up a good point also is I think before men's work, I didn't acknowledge when somebody recognized me for something I did. And now I can just say thank you, and I can, as we say, take it in, and just can take it in, much more so than
Oh, it's nothing. It was
than
nothing.
before.
Yeah.
Before. And yeah, I could work and just kill myself and expect nothing. And yeah, now, like you say, I now also can really sort of internally recognize myself a lot, even when it's not coming from outside. And I also can work at picking up where, I don't know if this is way off the subject, picking up where I think I'm appreciated, but it's not necessarily said.
That's good. The subtler acknowledgments that occur. That's really, do you hear that?
Mhm.
That's something I've been listening for. Because some people don't know how to acknowledge, but they change their behavior. This arm starts waving, and that means they acknowledge. Or maybe I just make that up and feel bad.
I think that, as I'm listening to this conversation, I feel like, it's almost like, I feel like there's just something about a contract that's associated with responsibility. And I used to live my life like that. And for myself, I think it was more, I just felt more of a victim of my life. And what I mean by that is, to make it personal. For example, I'm a physician, and if I'm like, when I was younger and first starting out in my career, I took responsibility for people's health and whether they got better or not. Now, let me just tell you, that's a sure way to, to suffer and to make a mess of things. But this idea of responsibility, I don't see and feel it as clear cut and all that. But so I have a lot of questions about it. But back to this kind of contract around responsibility, which is that I take, for example, with my wife. I never had a relationship work out before my wife because I always had contracts with my relationships. In other words, I'm gonna love you like this, and I ought to see some love coming back, or,
It's over.
that's just it. Well, guess what?
So sue me.
Did a lot of waiting, right?
right. So,
Unspoken.
well, it's just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we do. It's like I did. A lot of unspoken contract, a lot of. I'll be done with this one.
I just want to mention something you were saying. I think they call that keeping points.
Yeah, whatever it is, but it's a contract. It's a contract. Whether it's spoken or not, it's a silly contract that landed me in a victim position because these things never worked out. Girl might have been loving me, but I might have had it. I'm unlovable, so no matter what, it wasn't going to work out. Or she wasn't loving me the way I thought love ought to look. All this basically bullshit. So for me to get to a responsible place and to finally get a relationship to work out, I finally got a girl to marry me. Imagine that. I had to. What's that?
A nurse?
Not so much, but I had to do like my man did over there, which is basically say, fuck that. You know what? If I'm gonna feel love, I got to learn to generate it inside myself. And I use my relationship, and she's a fantastic woman, I'll tell you that. And I couldn't find one, though, until I got straight with myself and took this position, which was that, you know what? She might do whatever she's going to do, but I get to be responsible for generating the love myself.
Right. Yeah.
And when she can't come up with the goods, guess what? That's another opportunity for me to generate it, because that's what I came to the planet to do. As a human being, to be causal in bringing love to the planet, and it's got to start at home, right here. And if I'm a victim of that, I can't really do that.
Someone told me that we have to be able to love ourselves before we can be in a relationship. And maybe loving ourselves ties into some of these things we're talking about. Self-esteem, integrity, taking responsibility, responsibility for our health, for our actions. I'm going to throw this out to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, does
Well,
this make some sense?
I'm going to say I didn't know where I wasn't loving myself until I was in a relationship. And if I had to get all the shit together before a relationship, it wouldn't have happened. Because it's the relationship that brought up the holes,
Exactly.
you know, for me. And that's why I read those little wonderful books that say you should have all your shit together before you ever have a relationship. And then someone told me, what is it when you have your shit together? You have tightly packed shit ready to blow. So, you know, for me, it's like some of the stuff just doesn't come up. You know, I'm married now, and it's like this stuff doesn't come up. Where'd this come from? I thought I was done with it.
Exactly.
And now I'm at a new level of commitment from dating to marriage. So guess what? New stuff's going to come up to work on. I want to make sure anyone just hasn't spoken who wants to, like, pause for a minute and let them throw something out.
I think when we pick the right words, you have to be self-aware of your limitations. That's part of what responsibility is, so that you don't try to say I'm going to do XYZ or be like XYZ and then not be able to step into those shoes. I keep thinking of Clint Eastwood's famous line, man's got to know his limitations.
Sometimes you have to bump up. I had to bump up against them to know. Go ahead. Yeah.
Part of the idea of responsibility is a responsibility to say no. Just because an opportunity is put in front of you, you don't have to jump on board. You don't have to embrace it. You got to be smart enough to know that if I commit to it, I'm going to do it. But if I don't think I can do it, don't commit. Just say no. It's okay to do that.
Boy, that's a big lesson I'm still learning.
Well, part of the challenge is I'm part of a group of people bringing a large seminar to North Carolina in a few weeks, and we're all volunteers. I wrestled before I took over chairmanship of a particular part of the segment. A lot of people took chair positions and have never made meetings, have never contributed. We're down to the last hour, and now there's a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth trying to get all the things done that needed to be done. And there's not an accountability on their behalf. You know, they haven't stepped up to the plate to do what they said they were going to do, and I find that unacceptable. I find it unacceptable myself if I were to do it. So I don't commit unless I know I'm going to do it. And if I commit, I'm going to do my best. I don't know that I'll always hit the mark I'm trying to hit, but I know I'll give everything I've got to try to do it. I think that's part of the responsibility. And I don't know if that's a man issue, woman issue, or what. I think that's just a human nature thing we ought to do.
I think there's, as far as relationships go, I'm coming through an end of a 21-year relationship with a spouse that we're getting divorced on, and the question is going to be integrity-wise. You know, the marriage was over, or it was dead 15 years ago. You made a commitment before that, 6 years before that. So when does your commitment and when does the reality come to play? I mean, you made that commitment, but yet I stood in it for 15 years longer than that.
I did it 40 years. Should have done it. It stopped at 20.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think
that's amazing to,
Yeah.
I know where you are on there.
I don't.
I know where I am.
You know, I think that's where it's really kind of dangerous to equate manhood with sort of these arbitrary kind of things. Like, oh, I kept my commitment. I kept my commitment for 20 years. And it's like somebody else said over there, it's like, hey, it might have been the best thing that you broke the commitment, right? So, or I kept my word. I mean, these things are like ways that we like, I mean, for example, myself, you know, I was raised by a dad who was in the military and everything was very highly disciplined and kill people if you need to and all this stuff. Well, that's a certain type of man. I mean, man, that's a certain type of so-called man. I don't know whether that is a man, but what about another man who says, I chose a different road. I chose a road of trying to find peace and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not here to say which one is better, but I think it's dangerous to like sort of do stuff with ourselves. Like, I'm a failure because I broke this. Somebody said it had a failed relationship. I'm a failure because I did this. If I did all that kind of stuff to myself and tried to hold myself to those kind of sort of arbitrary standards, I'd be like John said, like what actually are we talking about? What is actually a man? What is actually responsibility in a way that's alive? And not just some kind of definition we made up.
Well, I kind of wonder what having a responsibility has to do with being a man anyway. I mean, you're talking about keeping your word or breaking your promise. What does that have to do with a man? Seems like that has to do with a person, but a woman has the same issues. I respect my wife or don't respect her because of the things that she does. I mean, this is human. Why is that man stuff? I mean, what distinguishes the man in that situation from the woman? I mean, are we talking about masculinity here? Are we trying to find what masculinity is? Or are we trying to find what being a good citizen is or a good person? Or, I mean, why do we have to be different even? I'm just throwing those things out.
Well, I want to thank everybody for sharing. I've attended a few of these with Martin, not a lot, but it's each time I gain so much when I come and to hear men speak. I don't get around men much. As I said, I work with animals, so they don't say a whole lot. Probably the biggest thing for me is personal responsibility. I do a lot to fix other people's situations, to take care of. I'm almost been defined as a caretaker with what I do, and a lot of times at my own expense, my health, my well-being, my finances, and my commitment is to be more aware and present of my own needs going forward, to actually try to create some balance in my life.
Right.
Well, I never cease to be amazed at my little head and how I got it. That what's going on in my head is what's going on in other people's heads. So that just blows my mind every time I get in a group like this, and people come at me with so many different perspectives on this thing. And this thing about responsibility, really interesting, because I was thinking, God, these guys got some shit going on, man. They got their word and all this kind of mess. They got their identity as their word and stuff. And I heard that before, and it's a nice idea. But then I was wondering why I don't have it like that. And then I thought to myself, well, God damn it. I was devastated as a child. In other words, my parents, A.T. was saying, my dad, I think his dad told him some of that stuff. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. But I realized that my dad fucked up. So what does that mean to me? One, it's a double-edged sword, because I don't have people like, if you don't keep your word to me, well, you're fucked up. I don't have it like that. I also don't have it like, my wife don't show up like this. As a matter of fact, my wife's Swedish, so she shows up all kinds of different kind of ways that I've never seen. So I had to really lay back on my expectations so I could really actually appreciate who this person really is. She ain't going to show up the way I think she's going to. That's the other thing. So it's beautiful because it gives me more room. Other people have more room. But the other side of that, and I have a lot more room too. The other side of that is what you guys are talking about my word and about all that. That's a different dance. And I'd like to be able to explore that. Not as some kind of rule or some kind of law, but just like another actually invention about how we can be with one another on the planet. Not as always right and it's the only way we got to be, but just as, this is an interesting, what can we accomplish from this place? And so I'm just blown away, like you said. It's wow, there's a lot of stuff I get to learn and explore. So I want to thank you guys for laying it out there.
Right.
I I just, my insight was in that I tend to probably push people away if they don't meet my expectations. And to be my commitment is to not only hold myself responsible, but also to give other people a break, and also to avoid confrontation and to call people on things, which is a stretch for me. At the same time, sounds sort of contradictory, perhaps, but different people, different situations. About giving people some slack, and figure out what's appropriate, so that I'm not pushing people away and isolated. So that's my commitment.
Great. For me, the insight is all the suffering and concern and doubt that you wouldn't show, or I'd be sitting there alone with equipment. And what the hell am I doing here? 10 years, I can't get anyone to show up. What a loser. I got that. That was all worth it. I probably would do it the same way. And the noise in my head's going to keep rattling around. I just got the profound value of staying to my commitment, that there is value for us as men to get together and be real. That my commitment is that I see a world where men get real with each other, and it's going to be a better world, and I'm going to keep pushing it and going for it, even if it pisses people off and makes someone look odd at me. The next piece for me is thank you so much for coming here. It takes some guts to show up and just be real with men, show up giving yourself, and to me, this is real courage. And I experience you all as having courage to just be here, because there are a lot of men that don't have the courage to be here yet, and let's support them in getting there, or whatever they need. And so thanks very much. Declare it end. If any of you seem to make a connection, I also recommend have coffee with some guy. Get his number. I don't give out a list. You have to actually walk over and talk to the guy. And they're also in any name tags, because you need to go walk over. And thanks for an extraordinary birthday present. Thanks.
I just wanted to take a second to get back to what two traits. Were they masculine? Were they manly, or what they were? And I think he made an excellent point in regards to taking responsibility, doing what we say we're going to do. Those are traits of good people. Mm-hmm. And I think you're 100% right when you say, is that necessarily a masculine trait or a manly trait? And I guess I have to back up and say, no, I see it different when you put it that way, that's a trait of good people, whether it be female or male. That would be a good person versus, somebody who doesn't care about meeting their responsibilities or meeting their obligations would be the trait of a less than desirable. So I just wanted to come back and mention that I hear what you're saying in regards to that, and I think that's a really interesting point there.
Well, thank you. I wanted to say one other thing in response to what you're saying there, because you brought in something that I think is really important also. You said the word good and bad. Good people seem to have this trait, and so having that word attached to a behavior, that perplexes me a little bit. I'll tell you why. Because it seems like every day of my life I have to fight for that. It's not as if I'm a totally good person, and so that I have total responsibility for whatever I do, because that's really bullshit. There's sometimes I'm squirming out, and I'll tell you, when I catch myself, it is really great, and I've only caught myself a handful of times. But when I do, like for example, the people that work for me, I think the most important attribute about them is for them to have personal responsibility for what they do. And yet, you should have seen some of the stuff that I have done. At the very same time I'm saying that, I get mad at a convenience store owner because his air pump is broken. I put in 50 cents and it's not enough to fill my goddamn tires up. And so I go in there and I say, I want the rest of this air because I put in 50 cents and the rest of my tires aren't filled yet. And he said, I'm sorry, that's not ours. And I said, I just got gas here. It's yours.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the front and he's got a whole line ahead of him. And so I'm getting mad. He's not responsible. And this was down near the coast.
You know, doing the right thing, or just like the example that you show of, you know, going off, you know, in a situation, and like you say, you're upset with him because he's not being responsible for whatever it was, and on the same token, you're turning around and doing the exact same thing, and so it ties in. It's like we have all of it inside of us, and it's a constant battle to have, let's say the little devil on the one shoulder versus the other guy on the other shoulder, and which one we're paying attention to. So I guess good and bad people is a bad choice. Is not a positive choice of words.
No, it's not. I just want to accept myself.
Yeah, no, I follow.
And I want to catch myself, but I don't want to think of myself as bad, essentially,
right,
or as judgmental at all, because then I won't look at it right. I'm just wanting to be open about that.
I want to take a little different slant off that. One of the things I've observed is the effect of decisions, and I see that in my life as I've looked at the decisions I make and have made, really determine my path in life. And I see some other folks who are really struggling, and I sort of think about the decisions they make, in the decision. And one of those, it really, it's the quality of those decisions in some ways, and how I get to making those decisions. And one of those decisions, obviously, is integrity and responsibility, accountability. And I guess one of the things that's really neat about doing this work is as I pay attention to those things, my life is easier. I don't get crosswise with so many people. And as I just watch people, and some of the people, I was just talking to somebody who was on this trip about this guy called Scary Gary. He's a contract, but he didn't take responsibility for anything, and consequently, he always got crosswise with people. Whereas it's just one of those things I've watched people, and it's been really interesting. The effect of those, responsibility for those things shows up in my life, and as I observe others watching that.
I wonder, he pulled out this other question about when someone else breaks their word, what do we do?
Yeah, no, that's
committee people and they aren't doing shit. That's some issue I have. What do we?
Yeah.
What's the answer to that?
Let's throw that one out. Would you read it?
You start off. What is there to do when we break our word? And then another part of that is when someone else breaks their word, what do we do?
Let's look at both.
So breaking our word, and then somebody else breaks their word.
Go ahead. Did you want to say something before that?
Yes.
You simultaneously raised your hand.
I either read or heard that most successful marriages are when the guy gives in to that part. They're easygoing and.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
But I guess the other part about that I thought, that's why the guy dies sooner.
Exactly.
Okay. So was this article written?
They claim that's a true. Those are the successful marriages.
But I had to tell you, I went after my divorce. I have a friend that had an arranged marriage. He's Jordanian, and at 18 it was arranged. And I went to see him, and I said, and they're together. I said, well, how's your marriage? And he says, well, up and down. And I said, well, what do you do when you don't get along? And he said, we don't get along. And he sort of paused for a minute. I said, well, what happens? He goes, well, eventually one of us gets tired of not getting along.
Yeah.
And I realized in his culture, they're on both sides, because they were both Arabic descent.
Yeah.
There was no option out. You know, so there's like, we got to work this out, or it's going to stink sleeping next to this person, you know, that I don't get along with. And he says sometimes it goes for a while and sometimes it doesn't. And usually one of us just gave up, you know, being right about it or something. I thought that was interesting. But you want to throw something in? So remember your hands up.
Well, no, what I was going to throw in is that what if somebody perceives that you don't do what you're supposed to do?
Okay, well, let's take one at a time. That's good. Remember that, okay?
Right.
And there's one fellow on the floor to remember, too.
Well, I think one of the most dangerous things, definitely it's been my experience, is not expressing feelings, not taking responsibility, you know, use that word, for what I'm feeling. And not sharing how I've been hurt by someone or by a situation, by my wife, you know, whatever. Not expressing that. So if someone is like, whatever, if someone doesn't keep their word, what can you do other than tell them? You know, I mean, really, you can't force them to keep their word. All you can do is express that I'm hurt.
How you feel about it.
How I feel.
But you can also adjust your attitude towards that person and your attitude towards your commitment. Because I think there are cases, and we were talking about these marriages where they go on, because I was in, my first marriage went on, you know, we were married and happy for 2 years, and we spent 5 years together with each other. And we had communicated that things were good, but neither one of us was at the point where we could say, okay, well then, let's look at this commitment again. This is not the right commitment for us. We need to move on, because I agree with Martin in certain cases, a certain part of your definition where you're together to grow. You're together to move on. And if you're stifling each other, there comes a time where you have to I think it's responsible to break a commitment. And to reevaluate the commitment and to break the commitment, because it's not what you thought it was. You know, when you said, I thought I knew what marriage was too when I got into it. I had no idea either.
What I found is that a lot of times, this is not all the case, in my situation, I know when I was real stupid, you know, I'm not real smart now, but when I was real stupid, I would challenge a person based on what I thought. And when I retired, me and a lady traveled around the country together. And she had gone through the 12-step process. And she said in the 12-step process, they taught her, rather than fly off the handle, get clarification. And so she would say to me while we were riding, when you said da-da, did you mean da-da or did you mean da-da? Now, of all the situations that occurred on that whole trip, there was only one time what she thought I said was what I meant.
That was only research. Good thing she was doing that. What happened is she didn't.
This year I would have been walking all the way from California.
Yeah, but isn't that amazing how communication just is almost guaranteed not going to work, and we need to do something about it.
It seems to me that it was coming from a equal or a humble place in her actually asking and not thinking that she's never one who does it and getting all up in arms. Because just like John was saying, you know, to ask something or to clarify your feelings, I was just wondering, how can we do that on a level without a superiority thing? I mean, because if you come down on somebody, you're saying, I have never done that myself.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But the way she did that, she's like saying on an even basis, so there isn't any.
Exactly.
I mean, how can it be disrespectful if you're just clarifying something?
And I learned that from her.
Yeah.
So from now on, even though I think I'm right, I still prefer to take that approach, because what it does, it gives the other person permission to communicate what they felt, or if it was different, and feel safe about doing it. And even if they did mean it, it may not be for the same reasons that I thought they meant it. So it gives them freedom to explain their reason for doing it.
I've made that mistake like 100 million times, where I thought that the other person was saying, and basically they've said something to me, just innocently, and it triggered some crap in me from the past.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pissed off now and all that stuff. And I just think what you said was extremely wise, because it's like what John said, are we taking responsibility for letting people know, hey, that hurt me?
The other piece I want to say is I've noticed that not just what I say, but the tone of what I say, and that it has been wise for me to start managing and noticing tone.
Yeah,
that's key.
And that's not easy.
I just want to respond to what you said there real quick, because I agree with you. And just a little joke on Seinfeld said, I heard him say, he said, he just got married some years ago. He said, and I realize now that I have an unwelcome tone. I didn't know I had this unwelcome tone, and now I do.
I was never aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a situation with a girlfriend. All of a sudden she had this very pained look on her face. I didn't know what it was for, and then the following day she told me. I said, I didn't hear that, and I don't remember saying that. I don't think I ever said that, so we had a miscommunication. So I think we have to take responsibility, because communication has to be two-way. So we have to be responsible for that. If we didn't say something, we at least have to try to learn some of this nonverbal stuff. Use our eyes and ears, and if we're not seeing something, we may not know what we did, and continually try to improve ourselves. And this is certainly one great place to do it. Having all you together, I think, is terrific.
So now I want to take the time to wrap up and give you a chance to go around. What insights did you get of value? Just like one-liner of it. And is there anything you want to commit to doing in your life different out of those insights? And because to me, insights without a committed action is just entertainment. And I'm not here for just entertainment.
Yeah, I want to start this because I started out tonight thinking that, I am a responsible person. And ending the night, hearing this last few minutes of conversation, realizing that I'm the one that's always like right there on the edge, just ready to make the excuse as to why things didn't quite work out the way, when I ought to be the one saying, I didn't hold my part together here. I'm sorry. What can I do to make it right? And that's good.
Is there anything you want to commit different to do or recommit to?
Well, yes, absolutely. Just commit to stepping up to the plate whenever I'm making a shortcoming, not keeping my word, not doing what it is that I'm responsible for. And just accept it, acknowledge it, and commit to doing whatever I need to do to make it right with the person, and move on. And
Great.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. It's clear. Anything?
Not exactly. A lot of what we talked about tonight were things that I used to do, and I'm not perfect. You and I have disappointments with you, as you know. And it's something that I own up to, and I used to not, but I knew that was wrong. I knew it was not so much for the other person, but for me being accountable to me and feeling good about who I am. So I made those changes, and they're hard to stick to at times because it's really embarrassing when you kind of blow a commitment like that to own up to it.
Yeah. Okay. Insights and commitment.
I was listening, and I'm thinking that I personally, whenever I commit to something, if I can't do it, I need to own, regardless of the level of commitment I have to that person, I've got to keep the same level of commitment to myself. It's me who owns my part. I can't control anybody but me. So I've got to be more committed. Whether I'm committed to that friend, I've got to stay committed to me. So I've got to recommit myself to me.
So what your action would be, you're going to recommit yourself to you.
Yeah, right. Just try to be more honest with myself. Because what I do to other people doesn't really matter, but it's me.
Great. Anything?
Well, the thing that this brings up for me, talking about integrity, basically, is trust, and it's probably my motivation for wanting to keep my word, because frankly, I'm thinking about this, that I actually am in love with trust. It makes me be a different person when somebody trusts me. I do my best work. I have my best relationships. It brings out the best in me when people trust me. And so I really do love that part, and I love what it does. And so I want to be open to learning about it. And that's what, this conversation it sharpens all the edges. That reminds me that being worthy of your trust is what I am after.
All right.
I want to first of all thank everybody for listening to me rant and ramble about work. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you, very patient. And I've decided that I need to commit to I have a responsibility to keeping myself healthy and taking care of myself. So if more stuff's coming down and the contract has changed and new things being added and a lot more expectations coming in, my responsibility, which I did, is to do it more so. When I tell my boss, look, I can't do it all. There's no way I can do this and work a reasonable amount of hours in the week and live a reasonable life. And he says, well, we need you to do all this stuff. I say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. They just have to take what they get. And I have a responsibility to stick up with that and not work weekends, not come in extra early, not stay extra late. I've got to have a life here. And sorry, they just can't get everything they want. So that's my goal, is to take care of myself.
Great.
This has been a great discussion because it's enabled me to integrate something. I'm always stuck between, and this goes back to something that you said about the marriage. You can either be right or you can be happy. Okay. I was trying to figure out what is the middle ground between those. How do you deal with being right and being happy? And the answer came up in terms of checking in, making sure that what the other person says is what they meant, because we misunderstand each other so often. And I think that's going to help me to resolve that. So my commitment is to check in more with people around me. Thank you.
I'm pretty good about keeping my word in the outside world, but I just realized tonight how I don't keep my word to myself. And that's the one I'm struggling with. And it's really on eating, dieting, what I put into my body. And I've been thinking about it, working on it. In the past, I've been able to do it, but for a year, I just keep eating stuff I shouldn't be eating. And so I break my word to myself.
Right. So your commitment is to keep your word to yourself more.
Eat better.
Right.
I was in a gambling house many years ago, and they sit around the table, the gamblers. Then some would get up and leave. And I remember one time this one guy hollered across the room, "Hey Sam, there's a seat that's open here." And he was a foreigner, and he says, "Well, include me out." That was the greatest. I've thought of that a million times. When you're out, include me out. So that's a good line. I've thought about it many times in my own head without saying something. Mm-hmm. So there comes a time when you want to be included out. That's it.
Okay, great.
Well, I think for me, what I think I'm going to take away is how important it is to actively listen. Sometimes your mind can drift, and then you try to fill in what you thought you missed. So I think that I'm reminded of how important that is. Even sometimes when you don't think it's that important, it's still, even just out of respect, you should actually be tuned in.
All right. So your commitment is to
stay tuned in when I'm in communication with people.
I think we hit on we took the topic and hit it a number of different ways, and there were some interesting twists to it. I think one of the things that stood out the most for me that I will try to commit to is that the times that my life is better when I practice making better decisions. I won't always, quote unquote, keep my word the way I would like to. But when I make good decisions in those small, minute steps along the way, my life works better. And so I want to continue to practice making good decisions along the way. And as long as I practice doing that, then I've got to be going in the right direction. And that's a positive, and that's what I commit to.
Great.
I just want to thank all of you for saying what you said, and I'll commit to coming back.
Pass.
I don't want to be snared by my own words by saying this, but one thing I've heard here, I just have a habit when it's something unpleasant to tell somebody, I just, go do the ostrich method, put my head in the sand. Last year I joined against my better judgment. I haven't been on the board of anything in 25 years. But I got on the board of some organization. I thought that naively that it was just going to be one meeting a month. Well, the next thing I know, it could have been 5 meetings in the month of April a year ago. And I just stopped. So instead of calling them up or sending in a letter of resignation, I know. In other words, they got somebody else to do it eventually, I'm sure. It didn't cost anybody any business or any life, nothing like that. But except me. Who did it cost? It probably cost me some friends and acquaintances, maybe even some business. So I've had a habit of just not. So they, I'm going to strongly consider. Because I've given it some thought before tonight, and it's interesting how it just came up quite a bit tonight. I'm going to strongly consider, at least get moving toward when I can't do something. It will, just telling the person that I can't do it.
Right.
And I thank everybody here for at least helping me to see that. I think clearer than I've ever seen it my whole life.
Wow.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody. Well, I want to say thank you for inviting me, and thank everybody for their participation. And I've enjoyed this, and it's nice to be able to be in a men's group. It's something that I don't even remember being in one. Yeah, so this is very nice. Nice opportunity.
Right. Insights, commitments. Thanks.
My biggest thing is, with all the comments that were made here tonight, I'm a little bit overwhelmed with some of the insights that were actually brought forth. And so I'm going to have to spend some time actually pondering all this information that was thrown out here. And I appreciate that.
Well, I want to thank everybody for sharing. I've attended a few of these with Martin, not a lot, but it's each time I gain so much when I come and to hear men speak. I don't get around men much. As I said, I work with animals, so they don't say a whole lot. Probably the biggest thing for me is personal responsibility. I do a lot to fix other people's situations, to take care of. I'm almost been defined as a caretaker with what I do, and a lot of times at my own expense, my health, my well-being, my finances, and my commitment is to be more aware and present of my own needs going forward, to actually try to create some balance in my life.
Well, I never cease to be amazed at my little head and how I got it. That what's going on in my head is what's going on in other people's heads. So that just blows my mind every time I get in a group like this, and people come at me with so many different perspectives on this thing. And this thing about responsibility, really interesting, because I was thinking, God, these guys got some shit going on, man. They got their word and all this kind of mess. They got their identity as their word and stuff. And I heard that before, and it's a nice idea. But then I was wondering why I don't have it like that. And then I thought to myself, well, God damn it. I was devastated as a child. In other words, my parents, AT was saying, my dad, I think his dad told him some of that stuff. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. But I realized that my dad fucked up. So what does that mean to me? One, it's a double-edged sword because I don't have people like, if you don't keep your word to me, well, you're fucked up. I don't have it like that. I also don't have it like, my wife don't show up like this. As a matter of fact, my wife's Swedish, so she shows up all kinds of different kind of ways that I've never seen. So I had to like really lay back on my expectations so I could really actually appreciate who this person really is. She ain't gonna show up the way I think she's going to. That's the other thing. So it's beautiful because it gives me like more room. Other people have more room. But the other side of that, and I have a lot more room too. But the other side of that is what you guys are talking about my word and about all that. That's a different dance. And I'd like to be able to like explore that. Not as some kind of rule or some kind of law, but just like another actually invention about how we can be with one another on the planet. Not as always right and it's the only way we got to be, but just as, oh, this is an interesting, what can we accomplish from this place? And so I'm just like blown away. Like you said, it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff I get to learn and explore. So I want to thank you guys for laying it out there.
Right. I just, my insight was in that I tend to probably push people away if they don't meet my expectations. And to be my commitment is to not only hold myself responsible, but also to give other people a break, and also to avoid confrontation and to call people on things, which is a stretch for me. At the same time, some sort of contradictory, perhaps, but different people, different situations. About giving people some slack, and figure out what's appropriate, so that I'm not pushing people away and isolated. So that's my commitment.
Great. For me, the insight is all the suffering and concern and doubt that you wouldn't show, or I'd be sitting there alone with equipment. And what the hell am I doing here? 10 years, I can't get anyone to show up. What a loser. I got that. That was all worth it. I probably would do it the same way. And the noise in my head's going to keep rattling around. I just got the profound value of staying to my commitment, that there is value for us as men to get together and be real. That my commitment is that I see a world where men get real with each other, and it's going to be a better world, and I'm going to keep pushing it and going for it, even if it pisses people off and makes someone look odd at me. The next piece for me is thank you so much for coming here. It takes some guts to show up and just be real with men, show up giving yourself, and to me, this is real courage. And I experience you all as having courage to just be here, because there are a lot of men that don't have the courage to be here yet, and let's support them in getting there, or whatever they need. And so thanks very much. Declare it end. If any of you seem to make a connection,
I also recommend have coffee with some guy. Get his number. I don't give out a list. You have to actually walk over and talk to the guy. And they're also in any name tags because you need to go walk over. And thanks for an extraordinary birthday present.